Euranet Plus Panorama is a weekly review of European news broadcast by our network of EU radio stations.
Hi there, welcome back to Euranet Plus Panorama. When Hungary's Viktor Orbán took to the hemicycle floor to give his Council Presidency address, the routine event turned into a boisterous affair. There was even a musical interlude. Orbán addressed the European Parliament on Wednesday, the 9th of October, presenting the priorities of his country's EU Council Presidency, which we're already halfway through. Said priorities include promoting the bloc's global competitiveness, firming up the Schengen area, and, of course, clamping down on migration. In actual fact, Orbán's speech was more a manifesto for change as he levelled overt criticism at Europe's shift away from Russian energy sources as well as its decarbonisation programme. And it didn't go unnoticed that he made no overt mention of Ukraine. As Orbán's speech drew to a close, the anti-fascist chant Bella Ciao echoed around the hemicycle, sung by MEPs from the left. At the press conference following his speech, a colleague from Luxembourg's 100.7 asked the Hungarian premier if he now regretted his self-declared peace mission to Russia, Ukraine, China and the US, given the backlash it had generated in Brussels and around the EU. In response, he said that he'd been faced with two options at the start of his council presidency. The first was to take a bureaucratic approach, pushing forward one piece of legislation after another. But he opted instead to upgrade the presidency.
I would not like to underestimate the importance of that kind of bureaucratic activity of the presidency. But it's not enough if Europe is in a crisis as we are. So we have a migration crisis, we have a war and so on. So just to provide a kind of bureaucratic presidency is not satisfactory, I think so. So I decided to consider this presidency rather political one. I think it's legitimate if I am able to respect at the same time the regulation, not to insult the others and not to step over certain red lines.
As we have seen in recent weeks and months, some of the controversial Hungarian leaders' previously marginal views, on migration for example, are now being picked up by political parties around the bloc. And as Georgi Gotev, Euractiv Bulgaria's deputy editor-in-chief, told our colleagues at BNR, a Trump victory in next month's US presidential election could further elevate Orbán's standing.
Orbán has the wind in his sails. What he has been criticising is becoming mainstream politics, especially if Donald Trump wins the election. Then his strongman in Europe will be called Viktor Orbán.
The Commission chief followed up Orbán's speech with a diatribe that packed no punches, hitting back at his criticisms of Brussels and strongly hinting that the Hungarian leader is cozying up to Moscow and Beijing. In turn, Orbán accused von der Leyen of political intifada. Radio 24's EU affairs correspondent Beda Romano points out that the nature of the Commission President's response to a fellow European leader is unprecedented.
Never before in living memory, it seems to me, has such sharp criticism been levelled by the President of the Commission at a national leader, a head of government, ultimately an EU shareholder. Never before has criticism been so strong, so harsh, and of course this raises the question of Hungary's future in the European Union.
Yet, Romano adds, we would be wise to question Ursula von der Leyen's motives in this instance.
We cannot exclude the possibility that political opportunism also lay behind Ursula von der Leyen's attitude. This is a very particular moment. She has been re-elected as President of the European Commission, but with the parliamentary hearings of the next commissioners coming up, perhaps the Commission President wanted to play the rule of law card against Viktor Orbán in order to get the European Parliament on side.
Orbán per avere della sua il Parlamento europeo.
One of Orbán's official priorities is to see Bulgaria and Romania become full members of Schengen by the end of the year. In this respect, he is in agreement with the outgoing Home Affairs Commissioner Ylva Johansson. Anna Krasteva, a political science professor at the New Bulgarian University, and founder of Bulgaria's Centre for Refugees, Migration and Ethnic Studies, offers BNR her take on this aspect of his speech.
We heard very positive words from Orbán about Bulgaria and Romania, if I can pick up this important topic for us in his speech, as opposed to other more problematic accents. He firmly put the entry of Bulgaria and Romania into Schengen on the agenda of the Hungarian presidency, stressing how ready the two countries are by guarding the external borders. But he also delicately mentioned that if more help is to be given, the EU should do it with a lot more money. A very balanced formulation that Schengen is an advantage for Bulgaria and Romania, but also that the full membership of Bulgaria and Romania will be beneficial to the EU.
Yet at a separate debate in the European Parliament plenary this week, MEPs from around the Schengen zone were expressing outrage about Germany's recent reintroduction of border controls at all of its land borders with its Schengen zone neighbours. The heightened checks came into effect in mid-September, initially for a 6-month period, with a view to combating illegal migration. Some members question if this unilateral action by Berlin is even legal, reports Radio Romania. But whatever the legalities of the situation, the authorities in Poland, one of those neighbouring countries, are not amused. They are said to have found out about the change through the media. Civic Platform MEP Bartłomiej Sienkiewicz told the plenary session on Monday that such a move destroys European solidarity. Polskie Radio reports.
To był po prostu pokaz.
It was simply a show of arrogance. It's as much a dead end as raw material dependence on Russia or automotive dependence on China. You do not learn from your own mistakes and force others to bear the cost of them.
Inni ponosili ich koszty.
At a meeting of EU interior ministers in Luxembourg, Poland reaffirmed its opposition to Germany's stricter border controls. Here is Maciej Duszczyk, the deputy head of the Polish Interior Ministry.
The European Union has only one border, this external border. That's why you are absolutely against establishing the border control at the internal borders. We should focus especially how to secure better our external borders.
Slovenian EPP member Matej Tonin agrees that our focus should be on the bloc's external borders. His comments, also made at Monday's plenary, are shared by RTV Slovenia.
First, the rapid return of all those who came to Europe illegally. Second, we must strengthen our external borders. Third, the establishment of migration centres in third countries outside the borders of the European Union.
French S&D member Muriel Laurent is similarly opposed to the measure, as she explained in an interview with Strasbourg-based EU radio.
If we go to extremes and follow the ideology of the far right, what's to stop each member state from building walls and reintroducing border posts with customs officers as we knew them when we were little, when we went abroad to Spain, Portugal or Germany? So it's a danger, it reduces freedoms, and it's an inward-looking attitude. Personally, I think it's a huge step backwards compared to the progress we've made since 1986, particularly in terms of freedom of movement and internal security.
Yet Laurent's position differs from that of the previous two speakers, in that she would like to see the focus shift away from borders altogether, in favour of a more holistic approach to internal security.
As I have experienced firsthand as a mayor, there is a need to rework things, to give more appropriate resources to internal security services rather than considering closing borders. In any case, as we can see, it hasn't worked. I mean, particularly in France. Since the wave of attacks in 2015, there have been other attacks. So at some point, we must work with the French Secret Service and with international agencies too to make progress on this security.
Many MEPs sat on the proverbial fence during the debate, though. German S&D member Birgit Zippel, for instance, may have warned of the potential consequences of reintroducing borders within Schengen.
And the reintroduction of border controls, especially if this happens indefinitely, is a danger. A danger not only for our economy, for jobs, but also for European cohesion, for the daily cross-border encounters that strengthen us as an EU.
but she fell short of condemning her government for doing so. Of course, it goes without saying that France's Jordan Bardella, head of the very right-wing Patriots for Europe group, in which Orbán's Fidesz party also sits, has no aversion to borders.
A world without borders is a world of mafias, smugglers, Islamist attacks, trafficking, unfair competition and all manner of violence. This is not a desirable world.
Luxembourg's national broadcaster 100.7 shares these comments and more. And that's all from me for today. Make sure you join us next week for another Euranet Plus Panorama Roundup.